and welcome to tonight's episode of Teacher Time. On tonight's show, we will be discussing the new commissioning of assessment about levels. So, Mrs. Smith, what were your initial thoughts when you heard about the idea of commissioning assessment without levels?
Well, Robyn, after teaching for over 15 years now and working with levels, I think there is allowance for anybody, from professionals to parents, in understanding and viewing the progression of each individual child in each subject. I can't understand the reasoning for assessment without levels to be commissioned after it has proved to be successful for the past 25 years or more.
How do you feel about it?
I feel like it is going to take so much more planning and extra pressure on each teacher. There's no concrete approaches in place for us to use since they've commissioned this. Of course my focus is each child in my class, that's my job and that's what I love, but I'm worried that there is no national accountability anymore. It's going to become so fragmented. This is all in the hands of individual schools. Schools are now so exposed, they're isolated if there are no schools who use the same approach.
I can tell you have some worries about assessment without levels. Is there anything else you would like to add before we move on to Mr. Jameson's views on the commissioning?
I believe that example approaches should have been introduced to specific areas locally so schools can still meet the demands of the local authority. Nobody wants to make educationally sound decisions which don't have any links to the local authority demands.
And now we're speaking to Mr. Jameson, who is in strong disagreement with Mrs. Smith. What are your initial thoughts about the idea of commissioning assessment without levels?
I do not think that just because levels have worked for so long that they should be kept and referred to constantly.
So, you agree with the commissioning of assessment without levels?
Yes, teachers depend on levels. Every area of a child's progress is based on levels, which I do not agree with. For example, discussing children's progress in their progress meetings. I don't agree with them completely. For children's progress to be determined by whether if they are 0.1 or 0.2 above their last term's target level. The smartest children in the class can progress the slowest. But that's what the head teacher wants to hear, that they've gone up a level, so it can be ticked if they've progressed. So now we welcome one of our presenters, Bryonee, a teacher experienced in teaching before and after levels, and Robyn, a representative from Leader magazine, speaking about Andrew Thrave's article, Life After Levels. So, what do you make of the views of Mrs. Smith and Mr. Jameson?
Well, speaking as a teacher with experience teaching in primary schools and using the levels, I feel it is a positive change and I do agree with Mr. Jameson's points. Right. Whilst using the levels, I felt as though parents had a lack of clarity over how the children were performing. It wasn't clear to them how they were doing in school and they became a generalised label like what the government said.
I can understand your point, Bryonee. However, schools will still need to demonstrate students' progress. I feel as though this is a pointless change, as we're just going to go from one method of assessment to another. I don't necessarily think that the alternative methods will provide the clarity that we're after, as levels like emerging, exceeding and expected they're quite vague, whereas the levels, the 0.1, I feel like they're providing more clarity for parents.
I understand what you're saying, Robyn, but I just think with the removal of levels, yeah, children's progress, they'll still be measured against some benchmark, they'll just make something else up instead of numbers, and there'll still be the pressure that they had beforehand. I think sometimes teachers can become too focused on achieving the measures of progress rather than focusing on the whole child.
Thank you both.
Here via telephone to support Mr. Jameson in his agreement on the Commission of Assessment Without Levels is John McIntosh, CBE, who commissioned the final report of the Commission of Assessment Without Levels. Mr. McIntosh, what would you say were the problems with levels?
Too often levels became viewed as a threshold and teaching became focused on getting pupils across to the next threshold instead of ensuring they were secure in the knowledge and understanding defined in the programmes of study.
And?
Progress became synonymous with moving on to the next level.
Do you think that levels had a best fit approach?
Different teachers could make different judgments. Consequently, the information secondary schools received from primary schools was sometimes felt to be unreliable or unhelpful.
Now we will head over to the Minister of State for Schools, Nick Gill, speaking to us live from 10 Downing Street. Good afternoon, Nick.
What can you tell us about the new assessment without levels?
Good afternoon, Robyn. The new assessment without levels' main focus is to continue to raise the academic standards in our schools. Initially, levels were introduced with the intention of delivering an assessment system which measured pupils' progress against a national framework. However, over the years, this system lost sight of the original aims of the national curriculum.
What other reasons contributed to this change?
As the levels became more focused on gaining levels rather than making sure that all children had access to all of the content of the national curriculum, this resulted in children being pushed onto new material before consolidating their understanding in the name of pace.
What evidence is there to suggest that assessment without levels is the way forward?
There is great evidence in international comparisons that fast improving countries around the world do not use levels.
Thank you for that, Nick. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Now we will be speaking to Alison Peacock, head of Wroxham School. So Alison, how have you developed your own methods of assessment without levels?
Hi Bryonee. We have not talked to children and parents about levels for the last 10 years. Within that time, we have managed to achieve 3 consecutive Ofsted outstanding judgments and attainment has remained high.
So, what does assessment look like in terms of classroom practice?
At Wroxham, Life Without Levels allows us to create space for the highest quality curriculum where we can tailor learning to the needs of the individual. They are not given targets or grades, but there is a strong focus on formative feedback.
Without levels though, how are parents informed about the progress of their child?
Families are well informed about their children's achievements and progress here at Wroxham. Children write their own end-of-year reports from years 1 to 6. We also hold learning review days and family consultations. These meetings are led by the child who prepares a PowerPoint for their family and teachers. This provides feedback about their current challenges and successes. This conversation also includes how adults can support next steps in their child's learning. We also keep data tracking sheets just to ensure that no child slips through the net. This also provides a record for Ofsted. At Wroxham, the learning comes first and we use assessment to inform the process but not to provide a label or a measure. Time now to cut across to Tim Oates, Group Director of Assessment Research and Development at Cambridge Assessment.
The National Curriculum 2014 has a focus on fewer things but in a much greater depth. By commissioning assessment without levels, there can be a valued focus on assessing the children's understanding of key concepts rather than achieving a particular level. It needs to be brought into account that when levels were used in schools, this didn't necessarily mean that a child at a particular level had grasped the ideas of a subject. This could suggest they only achieved the level descriptors, not the understanding of the subject in hand. Assessment now should allow the focus of each individual child's learning and understanding in an approach adapted in individual schools. Removing levels for assessment helps to remove labels that children give themselves and the comparisons children can make with each other. The levels were originally designed to avoid this. There's now a watershed for schools. Teachers need to think about talks they might have with children, what they ask them, how this might contribute to the assessment of a child. I look to all teachers in all schools. It's up to you. Probe the pupil's understanding. You can become kleptomaniacs in assessment. The change in assessment means things are moving in the right direction. We are now speaking to Rachel, a teacher who is in agreement with the commissioning of assessment without levels. What evidence is there to suggest that teachers will be focused on securing pupils' knowledge rather than moving them across to the next threshold?
Well, as John said, there is great evidence from international comparisons that assessment without levels works brilliantly. In an article written for the Chartered Institute of Educational Assessors, they highlight the reasons why Finnish assessment without levels is so successful. Finnish schools are routinely held up as a beacon of excellence in education within the UK and the rest of Europe. And it's time we follow from great examples to change our education system for the better. One of the key differences in assessment between Finnish schools and schools in the UK is that Finnish schools' main purpose of assessment is to improve learning. The schools are also not ranked by the government for publication, which takes away some of the pressures teachers used to feel about children making certain levels of progression. As the teachers become less focused on assessment, they become more focused on the national curriculum. This is also supported by the Department for Education in their report on the commissioning of assessment without levels.
So how will the new schemes used by schools to measure progress follow these examples? Surely we are just replacing one method of assessment with another method.
Well, the new schemes are often much more specific, so rather than providing a level for a whole programme of study like levels previously did, some of the new schemes that schools can choose to use, such as Rising Stars, are split up into different sections of the curriculum's programmes of study so that teachers can record children's progress much more accurately than they were previously able to do.
Thank you, Rachel.